Absolutely.
I know a few years back they did implement $100 a month for children, I believe it was
Federally.
0 to 5 years old or 6 years old, which again is, great, thank you very much. A bit of a slap in the face for $100.
Yeah.
And then it ends at 5 years old. Well, you still have to have childcare from 5 to age 10, I believe. You're not allowed to stay home alone.
Right.
So now they've just taken away the $100 and you still have to pay, at least a $500 a month before and after school care.
That is a broken system. Through
It
and
is.
through, it's a broken
It is.
system.
So there's definitely, like you said, there's holes. There's things that need to be addressed.
For a
Yeah.
premier and a minister that says children are first in this province, you have to look hard to see the evidence for
That's
that.
right.
I think that's a fair statement.
Yeah.
And we challenge them on it every day.
Well, that's good.
That's what the opposition is
That's
about.
good.
Yeah.
That's good.
Did you want
Yeah.
to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to say, another piece that Bambi's brought up is, our educators, people that are working with our children, they should be considered professionals. And giving them that opportunity. They're not babysitters.
No.
They're nurturing and creating the opportunity for our children to be successful in the future.
That's right.
And therefore they should be educated, they should be trained on a regular basis, have accessibility to training, get all the support that they need, and they should be paid fair money. What we're seeing in Alberta is when we look at how much Alberta invests in childcare compared to other provinces, we're 6th on the list.
For a half province, the half province.
The half province. And that's disgraceful. It goes back to David's point about we're not prioritizing our children.
Well, is there a misconception though? You mentioned the qualities and the fact that these should be considered professionals. Is there a misconception as to exactly what childcare entails?
I
There's
would
a lot
think
of
so.
work. I would think so.
I would think so. It's people see it as a demeaning job. You're a glorified housewife. You what do you do all day? You sit around and do nothing. Well, would you like to come over for a day from 6 to 7 or 6 o'clock in the morning until 5 in the afternoon? I'll tell you what we do. We do a heck of a lot.
And what more
Yeah.
important role is there in society?
There's nothing.
Apart from
Yeah.
bringing up healthy, capable kids who are meeting their potential. I can't think of a more important role.
Absolutely.
And yet we are undervaluing and underpaying
Yes.
this critical
We are
service.
all
Absolutely.
banking on these kids
Yeah,
Yeah,
for the
exactly.
future.
in the future.
Yeah. This
And
is
that's a
the
spooky
future.
thought.
Yeah.
To
Yeah.
think that support is not there the way it needs to be.
Yeah.
I want to touch a little bit about what's going on in Europe. Now, they're doing things obviously a little bit different. Sweden has a great system by many accounts. I think the average cost of childcare in Sweden is about $300 a child, and it works on a sliding scale, and there's a lot of subsidy involved there as well. It's handled at a municipal level, which might be worth exploring. The interesting one for me, though, besides Sweden, was Portugal. In Portugal, schools, elementary schools, are actually required to operate from 9 a.m. until 5:30 p.m. Now, I know you might not be so keen on that, personally. I do kind of think that having that option as well to really carry things throughout the whole, because then we've got all the way up to the 10-year-olds covered
Yeah.
all day. Now, is that something that is feasible for Alberta? 9 to 5:30, which is essentially parents' work hours. Can we incorporate that here?
I definitely think so. I
Yeah.
think that's 2 hours beyond the usual school day. We're now asking parents to find their own arrangements at 3:30 or 4 when school ends. And if we're really trying to make this a friendly, community-based community building for children, that should be certainly on the table, I'm sure.
And it's not that I think that kids shouldn't go to school for that long. I just think the younger they are, and people are trying to put them in as 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds, and they want them at full-time preschools, and they want them at school, at kindergarten, full-time, and it's a complete learning time, not necessarily the playtime.
Playtime,
And
sure.
I mean,
Yeah.
back when I was in kindergarten, we had naps still. We had cots that they laid out, and we still had a nap.
Yeah.
They don't do that anymore, for sure. So that's where I see the issues with, these kids get tired, they're exhausted, they're little kids. But as far as, elementary school, grade 1 and up, having to go to school for longer hours, and that, I think it would be very beneficial for them.
It could be. And just to be clear, though, as well, I should mention that the last 2 hours of that school day, from 3:30 to 5:30, it's not exactly curriculum. It's curriculum enhancement activities.
So it's like an after-school care.
Right. So
type
it's like
thing.
it's music, for example, sports,
Yeah.
English
Right.
as a second language in Portugal.
That would be an awesome thing for parents who can't afford to take their kids to sports and put them in the extracurricular activities.
Yeah,
They
it's
can't
a
afford
great
it, and
point.
they don't have time
That's a
for
great
it.
point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the other piece is when you ask the question, is this possible in Alberta? This is I think the part that is so frustrating. Is of course it's possible in Alberta. David alluded to it earlier. if some of these countries, they have higher tax rates.
Much so.
And so Alberta has a very low corporate tax rate, and we have a flat tax, which no other province has, where everyone pays 10%. Well, if everyone pays 10% of the wage, the people on the lower end are paying more of their wage than those up top. So adjusting and changing those taxes and thinking about using that money to invest in our public services and our kids, there's great opportunity in that. We've done some recent work around that. And if we changed, say, the highest, someone who earns over $150,000 a year, and we changed their taxes from 10% to 14% a year, we would be bringing in an extra $700 million into this province. And that would only affect 6% of the population. So there's so many possibilities that we could be looking at, and instead we continue to stay on this road that is so structured without seeing.
No, it is a big issue. There's a lot to it, folks. We're going to jump to our last break here and wrap things up. Stay with us.
I really think that we look at the whole situation wrongly in Alberta. I think that we see children as a burden, but really that's the resource of the province, and we should really invest in that resource way more than we are right now. So having affordable daycare for people as an incentive to have children, to populate our province and to make it stronger, I think that's the wisest path.
Guys, just before we get going here, there's kind of a new, I don't know if it's necessarily new, but there is definitely some emphasis on corporate government subsidized childcare centers. You see, they are garnering a little bit of momentum as of late. Is that the right path? Is this, the one I'm thinking of is the Bright Path Early Learning. I don't know, Julie, are you familiar with this group?
Not familiar with them. I'm familiar with Edlian.
Right, formerly they're actually,
Okay.
I think they swapped their name now.
They have swapped their name. Yes, very familiar with the devastating effect. That Edlian, which is prior to Edlian, it was ABC 123 in Australia, devastated the childcare system in Australia because it was the only provider. So they had one corporation running all the childcare facilities, and as charges started to mount against this particular corporation, the Australian government actually had to pay them, in order to keep childcare going, they actually had to pay off the debt of this childcare.
Well, spooky.
It's really frightening, and it just devastated the childcare in Australia, and it's still recovering. So now they're here in Alberta, and we're certainly concerned because they get public money, just like a licensed not-for-profit daycare. They access the same amount of money through accreditation and through subsidies, and that's no corporation that's being exchanged on the Toronto Stock Exchange should be getting public money from Albertans.
It's pretty clear cut. I think we all probably agree.
I tend to feel the same.
Yep.
There you have it, folks. Thanks very much for joining us tonight. As always, an informative discussion, and of course, you can keep the conversation going. Jump in on Facebook or get us on Twitter. And if you have a show topic you'd like us to discuss, don't be a stranger. Drop us a line. Take care.